appears to have been infuriated with the CIA's competence and unwillingness to provide the information they required to implement their plans, particularly in Iraq. One study, based on extensive interviews with senior intelligence and ex-intelligence officials, describes the undistinguished Porter Goss as a wrecking ball who was appointed as director of the CIA to bring the agency in line with executive demands, whatever the facts. Goss's primary qualification seems to have been his unswerving loyalty to Bush. Dozens of senior officials are reported to have quit the CIA in disgust, leaving the demoralized agency with severely diminished competence, particularly with respect to the Middle East. This peculiar mixture of supreme arrogance, utter incompetence, and passion for obedience has had catastrophic consequences, quite possibly laying the groundwork for much worse to come. Bush and company are even willing to sacrifice the war on terror to their obsession with torture. In order to kidnap a terror suspect in Italy and send him to Egypt for probable torture, the Bush administration disrupted a major inquiry into the suspect's role in trying to build a terror recruitment network and build a jihadist recruitment network with tentacles spreading throughout Europe. Italian courts indicted 13 CIA operatives, and Italians are furious. Other European countries have similar complaints about the Bush administration undermining anti-terror operations. The sole conviction of a person connected to 9/11, Munir el-Motasadiq, was overturned because Bush administration officials refused to provide German officials with crucial evidence. Similarly, the Bush administration has refused to allow the Spanish authorities to interview Ramzi bin al-Shib, a central Qaeda suspect, to bolster their case against two men on trial in Madrid on charges of helping to plan the 2001 attack on 9/11. Though the support of its allies is indispensable in the war on terror, Washington triggered tensions with allies once again, the Wall Street Journal reported, when a Spanish court issued international arrest warrants and extradition orders for American soldiers accused of killing a Spanish reporter in Iraq, along with a Ukrainian cameraman. The Spanish court acted after 2 requests to U.S. authorities for permission to question the soldiers went unanswered, court officials said. The Pentagon had no comment. The CIA kidnapping and rendition to Egypt led to commentary in the press about the cultural difference between the United States and Europe in the war on terror, adopting Robert Kagan's dismissive reference to Europeans as being from Venus, while Americans are from Mars. The soft Europeans believe in old-fashioned notions like criminal justice and law. The tough Americans just go ahead and get the job done, as in cowboy movies. As commentators knew, but skillfully evaded, it is true that the tough Americans pay little attention to criminal justice and law when dealing with terrorists. Rather, leading terrorists are given presidential pardons over the strong objections of the Justice Department, which wants them deported on grounds of national security, Orlando Bosch, or dispatched to more extreme terrorist activities, Luis Posada Carriles, or protected from repeated extradition requests that are simply ignored, Haitian mass murderer Emmanuel Constant, or dismissed by the courts, Posada, to mention just a few of those engaged in worthy terrorism. There is, to be sure, another conceivable category, U.S. terrorists, a possibility excluded by doctrinal fiat. The significance of Western state terrorism in Western culture is illustrated by the appointment of John Negroponte to the new position of Director of Intelligence in charge of counterterrorism. In the Reagan-Bush administration, he was ambassador to Honduras, running the world's largest CIA station, not because of the grand role of Honduras in world affairs, but because Honduras was the primary U.S. base for the international terrorist war, for which Washington was condemned by the International Court of Justice and UN Security Council, absent the U.S. veto. There was virtually no reaction to the appointment of a leading international terrorist to the top counterterrorism position in the world, nor to the fact that at the very same time, Dora Maria Tellez, the heroine of the popular struggle that overthrew the vicious Somoza regime in Nicaragua, was denied a visa to teach at the Harvard Divinity School. She was deemed a terrorist because she had helped overthrow a U.S.-backed tyrant and mass murderer. Orwell would not have known whether to laugh or weep. By 2005, Michael Lind grandly proclaimed, "The debate about the legitimacy of terrorism is over." The formal end to the debate was UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan's declaration in March that any action constitutes terrorism if it is intended to cause death or serious bodily harm to civilians or non-combatants with the purpose of intimidating a population or compelling a government or an international organization to do or abstain from doing any act. With this declaration, Lind concluded, terrorism against civilians, whether committed by stateless groups or states, should be treated unambiguously as a war crime by every country in the world. Fortunately, Western commentators are saved from the unambiguous conclusion thanks to our self-exemption from the most elementary of moral principles, the principle of universality. The willingness of top planners to risk an increase in terrorism, possibly with awesome consequences, does not, of course, indicate that they welcome such outcomes. Preventing terrorist attacks is simply not a high priority in comparison with serious geopolitical and strategic objectives, specifically controlling the world's major energy resources, recognized since the 1940s to be a stupendous source of strategic power, and one of the greatest material prizes in world history. The British understood that well in their day in the sun. At the dawn of the oil age in 1921, the First Lord of the Admiralty informed petroleum technologists that if we secure the supplies of oil now available in the world, we can do what we like. Understanding the point, the United States moved to expel the British from Venezuela, which by 1928 had become the world's leading oil exporter, and put U.S. companies in charge. To achieve that goal, Washington actively supported the vicious and venal regime of Juan Vicente Gomez, pressuring the government to bar British concessions while continuing to demand and secure U.S. oil rights in the Middle East, where the British and French were in the lead. Shortly after the invasion of Iraq, one of the more astute of the senior planners and analysts, Zbigniew Brzezinski, pointed out that America's control over Middle East oil producers gives it indirect but politically critical leverage on the European and Asian economies that are also dependent on energy exports from the region. He was reiterating the conclusions of leading post-World War II planners, George Kennan in this case, who recognized that control of the resources of the Gulf region would give the United States veto power over its industrial rivals. It is a rational calculation on the assumption that human survival is not particularly significant in comparison with short-term power and wealth. And that is nothing new. These themes resonate through history. The difference today is only that the stakes are enormously higher. If the United States can maintain its control over Iraq, which has the world's second-largest known oil reserves and is located at the heart of the world's major energy supplies, it will enhance significantly Washington's strategic power and critical leverage over its major rivals in the tripolar world that has been taking shape for the past 30 years, with U.S.-dominated North America serving as one pole, and Europe and Northeast Asia, which is linked to South and Southeast Asia economies, as the other two. These concerns have always been central to post-World War II planning, considerably more so today than before as substantial alliances are taking shape to counter American dominance, accelerated, as was predicted, by Bush's aggressive militarism. Examples abound